What is up, First Round Fantasy fans? Welcome to the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your home for second round advice. I'm your host today, Jacob Bartley. If you haven't noticed so far, Gabriel Maramontes is the host of the first podcast of the week, and I'm the host of the second podcast of the week. That's pretty much how it's going to go for now. And we're also joined by Justin Morsaz. What is going on, guys?
Not a lot.
Ready to get the weekend going.
Pivotal playoff matchups, baby.
Oh, yep. It's playoff time, baby. For most leagues. I do play in Yahoo Pro Leagues, and only 4 teams make the playoffs. So playoffs are weeks 15 and 16. So we get an extra week to try to play it. But it's way harder to make the playoffs in those leagues.
That sounds
way harder.
Now, 10-team leagues, 16 playoffs. That's where it's at. 14, 15, 16.
Oh, yeah.
That's the format.
And first and second bye weeks, that's the best way to do it, for sure. I mean, I'd be down for a 12-man league, but everybody's scared to play in one. But that's what we really need to do is a 12-man league.
Next season.
I agree.
That's the real competitive.
12-man league, 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 3 flex. You got to go deep.
Ooh, we can discuss the 3 flex, but I definitely think we can do 12-man because there's guys on the waiver wire that shouldn't be on the waiver wire, but we'll get into that another day for sure. Today we're doing game previews for Week 13. There's no news to break down right now. We're just going to get straight to it. We got a bunch of games to discuss, and the way we basically break it down is each of us are going to heavily focus on one game, but the other guys can throw their 2 cents in as well if they have a major point to make. And we're going to kick this one off with the Saints at Falcons. And we're going to throw this one to you first, Gabe. Obviously, you know your must starts, but how are you looking at this game as far as guys you're not sure about starting?
The biggest question with the Saints and Falcons game is on the Saints side of the ball. And this was a conversation we had in depth on our last podcast.
Dude, we talked about that for like 10 minutes at least.
And that is the scenario involving Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray has had extreme relevance over the last 2 weeks with Taysom Hill starting at QB. Meanwhile, on the contrary, Alvin Kamara has fallen off the fantasy radar for that same reason. So he is not getting the passing down work that he is accustomed to seeing, and it has hindered his fantasy value. With that being said, if you have Kamara, you're starting him. The question I have about this particular matchup is, are you able to start Latavius Murray in a flex spot? Jacob and I talked about it earlier. It depends on the situation, so I'm glad that we have Justin here today because I'd love to hear your input on this. Latavius Murray, I think he's gotten 12 fantasy points, and then he went off for 25-plus last week. Do you see him having an advantageous performance again against this Saints or against this Falcons rushing defense? Justin, would you consider starting both Kamara and Latavius Murray?
I'm going to side on the cautious end and say no, and I'll tell you why. If you look at his track record, he's touchdown or bust, to be honest. And you sit there, and I'm on forums, I'm reading reactions, and it's like, great job. You're at the 1-yard line. Hey, some vultures, Murray vultures. Why don't you feed your beast in Kamara? And I get it. You know, they're winning these games. They're a great team. They're not having these difficult matchups. So why hurt your stud when you're preparing for a title run? I get it. It sucks for fantasy, but I'm not going to sit there and bank if I need to make the playoffs on a probability of a touchdown or bust for Murray. I'd rather go with another flex play that's more solid. It's possible if he gets 2 touchdowns, 25. Okay, I'm not surprised, but I would be like saddened as the Kamara owner. But I just can't bring myself to double start them. They're in Atlanta this time around, so it might be different. They might need him a little bit more.
Yeah, it could be very different. I mean, the Falcons' rushing defense is stingy, averaging 3.6 yards per carry to the opposing running backs. And like you said, he's touchdown or bust. Last week, though, 19 carries for 124 yards. That's 100 yards and a bonus if you play in any fantasy leagues. So it was a good performance. He got the workload for it. And with Taysom Hill not really throwing the ball as much, and he's more likely to run, I think this just becomes a running team. So around the goal line, I don't think they're going to want to bang up Alvin Kamara any more than they should. They're probably going to hand it off to the bell cow, big boy, in Latavius Murray. So
Kamara is banged up right now, and
true.
It's a fair point to say, like they They have a great record. They're, I believe, as standing sit right now, I still think they have the bye week in the playoffs if the playoffs started today. So I think it's fair, like Justin said, to why risk injuring Kamara or putting more mileage on him this season when you really need him for the playoffs. But Justin, to me, it's kind of like, look, you're starting Kamara no matter what. So the question is, are you going to start Murray? And to me, you're hedging your bet in saying one of them is going to be productive. Both of them might be, but one of them, I feel very confident that one of them are. And if you look at your lineups every single week, you have guys who don't go off. You have guys, it's a mixture of, 3 or 4 guys who win you your week and 3 or 4 guys who really don't perform that well. So you're kind of guaranteeing a great performance from one of them in my eyes.
Jacob, Justin, let me propose this to you. In a flex situation, who are you starting, Latavius Murray or someone like Jarvis Landry, also coming off a big week last week, and another plus matchup?
And of course, this is full PPR. Man, that is a good question.
Justin, what about you?
For me, I start Murray. That's just the way I play. I've been doing this year, starting 2 running backs on the same team a lot. So I would go Murray.
I would 100% go Landry. I'm actually completely opposite. I would never start 2 running backs from the same team. It's just, to me, you're limiting your ceiling overall as a roster. That's why I try to stay away from that. I wouldn't blame you, but I get it.
I would have to agree with Justin. I'd start Landry as well. With that being said, again, that Falcons defense is stingy. 3.6 yards a carry. I think things have not been going well for Kamara, but if there's ever an opportunity to bounce back, it's in a high-scoring affair where the Saints are going to have to be passing the ball, and I think that bodes well for Alvin Kamara. So I would probably start Alvin Kamara with confidence, obviously, and I'd probably shy away from Latavius Murray. On the other side of the ball, really quick, how comfortable are you guys starting Gurley? Because, I mean, you talk about how stingy, Atlanta is. Just as stingy, if not more, are the New Orleans Saints. So I think this is a shy-away matchup for sure for Gurley coming off the knee injury.
I wouldn't start him. I mean, unless you're in a super deep league and you have no choice.
Yeah, I mean, if he's your RB2, you hope for a touchdown. He's been running awful, saved his weeks by touchdowns that are due for regression, and we're seeing that.
Yeah,
100%. 9 touchdowns this season. And I'm saying that as a bad thing because that's where his fantasy production has been coming from.
Yeah, a lot of carries, low rush yards, and touchdowns. That's what he's been doing. With that being said, I think you're starting everybody else. Taysom Hill,
I don't think anybody significant is in danger of missing. Everybody's limited. I mean, Gurley, we don't know if Gurley's going to play. He missed last week, so
yeah,
we'll see. But as we saw, Brian Hill doesn't work out even in a great matchup.
Not starting to back up either, especially against the Saints defense.
No. Okay, let's move on to the Browns at the Titans. And I guess home field advantage is not a thing this year, especially if you're the Niners going forward. Did you guys hear they're playing in Arizona for the rest of the season and for their home games? That's
I thought at least the next 2 weeks, right? Or did they confirm the rest of the season?
No, it's the rest of the year.
Well, yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really matter this year.
They looked good last week, though.
They did. They're
fans. You're right.
Believe it or not, which is crazy. But Browns at Titans. So AJ Brown was the only questionable player here. He is healthy. He's going to play. Jonnu Smith is going to be out this week. So maybe those tight end needy teams want to look at his backup. But Justin, how are you looking at this game otherwise?
I think this is my favorite game of the week because it tells me a lot of information. The Browns, I don't think if you asked any fan what their record is, they're going to tell you 8-3, but they've been winning, and Chubbs is balling out back. I like this a lot, and I'm obviously starting Chubb. I'm obviously starting Henry and AJ Brown. After that, it gets really dicey where it shouldn't get dicey, specifically with Kareem Hunt. He's had some down weeks to the point where I'm almost worried about starting him. Early in the year, you were starting. That was the one team you can start the 1 and 2 at halfback.
Well, I was going to say that was the only team you could start both for sure.
Now I'm kind of worried. Do I have to pivot away from Kareem Hunt? Mm-hmm. I personally am getting away from him just because I hopefully found more picks on the waiver wire coming up week 13. Hooper is a questionable start. I don't know if I want to start him at tight end, but with the injuries, I might pivot. What do you guys think about Hooper this week?
I don't mind starting him. I think he's going to finish in the top 10 as long as, look, they're not playing in Cleveland and there's no weather issues. I like him as a top 10 play.
Yeah, he's fringe for me. I might shy away from him, but he's there. What about Tannehill and Corey Davis? I have them as possible. Like, say you have Brady on a bye. Do you want to start Tannehill? Davis, is he a flex play? You know, these are good players, but outside of those two, I think those are the only fantasy relevant players that we're talking about in this game.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned
Jarvis Landry.
I'm definitely starting Tannehill this week. Matter of fact, I'm starting him, I believe, over someone like Deshaun Watson, which is mind-blowing to some, and it's mind-blowing to me as well. But I think someone like Tannehill has been more consistent in a plus matchup, and then you have someone like Deshaun Watson who's just gone off recently, but he loses another big weapon in Will Fuller. And again, Jacob and I touched on this last week. It took him time to really get into a groove without DeAndre Hopkins in the first few games of this season. Mentioned it was against tough matchups, but I like Tannehill at home rather than Deshaun Watson in his matchup. So I would start someone like Tannehill over Deshaun Watson this week.
Yeah, I actually love Tannehill for the rest of the season. He has the next 4 matchups are Cleveland, Jacksonville, Detroit, Green Bay. He could be one of these streaming. If you're a team who's been streaming quarterbacks all year, Tannehill is a great pickup. Unless you have a for sure starter, and like you said, Gabe, Watson doesn't have a great rest of season matchup wise. So, and it's tough because I hate deciding between quarterbacks. My typical strategy is to just choose one guy and ride with him for the rest of the season, but it does get really tough, especially like if Deshaun Watson didn't lose Fuller, then it wouldn't to me.
I wouldn't have questioned it at all. No, I mean, even if Indy going up against Indy, you know,
exactly, but I would consider Tannehill, and Corey Davis is my backup dark horse of the week. I think he's going to have a great game. He's been very consistent. The reason I had a backup was because of J.K. Dobbins. Wasn't sure if he was going to play, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
My backup.
I love Davis and Tannehill this week.
Nice. Okay, I agree.
Just so you guys
know, I like Davis a lot this week as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Davis. Start him if you have him. Austin Hooper, guys, currently tied in 25, so I don't see the appeal there. There's plenty of other guys
out for a while though.
True, but you know, just not exciting to me.
Yeah, I think he's low end as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, honestly, if you're outside of the top 3 or top 4, even outside of the top 2 is not exciting to me, to be honest. I thought TJ Hawkinson has been solid all year. You can do a lot worse, but even him, like, it's Waller and Kelsey. That's it, honestly, for now with Kittle out. All right, so Lions at the Bears. I'll go ahead and take the majority of this one. You have DeAndre Swift, who has been out with a concussion the past 2 weeks, and then he missed practice with an illness. I don't know if you guys heard about, I guess he hasn't been himself since the concussion, and we don't even know I don't even think we know where this concussion took place or where it happened. It just came out of nowhere. I don't think they've talked about it at all because we don't know if it was in his personal life, if it happened at practice, or if it happened at the end of his game prior to hearing about the news. This doesn't sound like a good situation. I have Swift in 2 prominent leagues where I'm going to be in the playoffs, and I was very much looking forward to having him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he misses more than this week. So we'll see how that goes. Of course, Galladay is out again. Feel bad for Kenny Galladay. Other than Niner players, he's my favorite wide receiver in the league, and he's on a contract year. I don't know if Houston has the cap space, but I want him to go to Houston in the offseason somehow. I think he would be a freaking top 5 wide receiver next year, no question about it. Allen Robinson's also questionable with a knee injury, but he's likely going to play. So the question is, do we start Stafford? Do we start AP? Do we start Marvin Jones? Do we start David Montgomery? Do we start Jimmy Graham? I will say, I think unless you're stacked, I say you're for sure starting David Montgomery this week. He had a great game against the Packers. The Lions, just like the Packers, the Lions are one of the top 3 worst teams against the run. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
I do like David Montgomery, but if I had to start him, I wouldn't feel bad about it. But I always try to not start him, if that makes sense.
I know what you mean.
He's been one of the most unappetizing players to play all season long, and just happened to be last week where he went off for 25 plus fantasy points in a plus matchup. And his schedule, I mean, we talked about it, 3 or 4 weeks ago on the show right before our trade deadline. I had said that David Montgomery is someone I want to trade away on the premise where you could sell him saying, hey, his schedule is beautiful. Take him. He's going to be great, knowing he probably wasn't going to be great because somehow his running prowess and Matt Nagy's mind just don't mix. So he's not fantasy helpful. But then, he goes to prove me wrong. And this is the start of a really great schedule for him leading into the fantasy playoffs.
So you guys are more pessimistic on David Montgomery than me. I am sensing a potential book it down here. You guys don't have to accept this if you don't agree, but I will say starting this week, I'm not counting last week, starting this week for the rest of the fantasy season, for the rest of the fantasy playoffs, he will be a top 10 running back for the rest of the year.
With that easy schedule, I like your style of betting. I'm gonna take that top 10 RB finish out. I agree. No way.
Yeah.
So if we all agree, then there's no book it down.
Yeah.
No, he's not gonna be top 10.
You're saying he's not gonna be?
No,
okay.
He's not. Even with that easy schedule.
Then we are booking it down. Okay.
I'll book that down.
Gabe?
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Justin here.
Okay. I just think because, like I said, we looked at the running backs this year, like the season totals, and it is ugly. It is absolutely ugly. And I think with Trubisky back, I think Trubisky had something to do with him having a good game last week. And I just think they have such a great schedule. There's no Tariq Cohen. I believe David Montgomery has gotten 5 targets a game at least since he's been every game he's played since Tariq Cohen went down. So honestly think who can you name 10 running backs who have more upside than him for the rest of the season? So I feel comfortable with that.
I see your point. I don't think he's going to make it.
And honestly, I don't think Stafford without Kenny Golladay, it's just been really rough. He's been okay some weeks, but I think you can do better this week. And I'm not starting AP or Marvin Jones. I don't feel good about those starts.
If Swift is out, I'd start AP, no problem, to be honest. He's the goal line back. Galladay's out. Who's going to get the touchdown? I trust him.
And you got to think both teams had trouble scoring the ball, which means likely this could be a low-scoring affair, meaning more ground game. I mean, last week I said don't start AP, and I think it was 2 weeks ago, and AP came out and had a really good game. So I don't think I want to be on the side of caution this time. I think I would start Adrian Peterson this week if I had to. I don't have any shares of him, but if I was desperate, I would start him and feel comfortable about it.
Interesting. All right, well, let's go to the let's go to the Bengals at the Dolphins. Ahmed is doubtful to play this game. I don't think Myles Gaskin coming back. I don't know if he's coming back yet. Let me see here.
Well,
I'll take IR.
Yeah, he's still on the IR, and just as of today,
he's on the IR. Is he eligible to come back?
So he's been practicing in full the last 2 weeks. He's eligible to be activated off of IR. And to be quite honest with you guys, there's very much a chance that they do play him this Sunday and take him off IR. Ahmed is doubtful. DeAndre Washington is doubtful. Breda has missed the last 2 practices with an illness. Patrick Laird is pretty much their only remaining running back right now. Now, guarantee when you think about it, the Bengals aren't necessarily a tough matchup. I mean, unfortunately, they've lost Joe Burrow for the season, therefore plummeting the fantasy stocks of all of their relative fantasy players at the moment. I think Boyd is a shy away, especially against an up-and-coming Miami defense, T. Higgins. Even in the backfield, Bernard is a hard pass for me this week after struggling the last two. Just some of the other younger guys are getting work in that backfield. But on the other side of the ball, if they activate it, I mean, everybody threw away Myles Gaskin when he got hurt. They're just going to hand it to the next guy. There's a very good chance we may not see him again. Well, the schedule for the Dolphins is not the worst, and there's a very good chance you see Gaskin this week. If he plays, I am fully 100% confident in starting him, knowing he'll get the workload. And I think he's got running back 2 potential there. As far as the quarterback position is concerned, I'm starting Fitzpatrick if he plays. Tua, on the other hand, I'm not too sure about. So I'd love to get your guys' opinion on that. And then, of course, that kind of correlates with the wide receiver position, and specifically Devontae Parker, who showed relevance in his last week before Tua went out with an injury. But if you look at that game, when Tua went out, he had relevance because Fitzmagic was in. And he was great last week with Fitzmagic in. So if Tua plays, I shy away from Devontae Parker as well. But if Fitz is in, I'm starting Devontae Parker with confidence. I'm starting Mike Gesicki with confidence.
It changes everything, to be honest.
It changes literally everything.
I think it's a difference between Parker being a wide receiver 1 this week or a wide receiver 4, to be honest. That's
100%
the difference it is. So that's how you're looking at it. And Gesicki, he's been so inconsistent all year. No matter what, I would try to shy away from it. But if you were considering it, if Tua's back in, I would definitely not do it. And man, it's really tough. I think we saw Higgins score a touchdown last week, so I think he's still pretty solid. And honestly, I think Boyd's going to be solid as well. We've seen him perform regardless of who the quarterback is, and it was one game, so I think Boyd is still a flex consideration along with Higgins.
I just know that defense is something to reckon with lately.
And stay away from Bernard. I'm done with him.
Justin, what about you, man? Thoughts?
I start Higgins without question, Boyd without question, but I really on the whole Dolphins predicate on Fitzmagic, like you said. I would start Gesicki full out if Fitzmagic is there. The Bengals defense is not that good, specifically to the tight end. So if you need a tight end, keep an eye on that matchup, because if Fitz plays, it's all good for you. But it's a pretty solid start sit for those options.
Here's your book it down for the week then, fellas. I'm going to stay fully away from Boyd and Higgins. Right now, PPR-wise, scoring, predictions, they have Boyd at 9 fantasy points, and I think Higgins is probably under that. I can look it up really quick. But if you guys are willing to, and if you have confidence in starting them, I'm probably happy to say that both of them score under 12 fantasy points apiece this week. You guys want to take that, book it down?
I don't feel confident about it, to be that confident about it.
What about you, Justin?
Let me clarify. Does one of them just have to score, or they both have to score over 12 points?
Ooh, that's a good choice. That's a good point. Let's do this. One of them has to score over 14 fantasy points.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that. Listen, I mean, it's the NFL. Someone's going to catch the ball. I'm not going to say they have a great game, but 14, I think one of them will do it.
If that's what it is, I'll take that.
Okay, Jacob pops on then.
It changed. The bet changed. If it was they both had to get 14, hell no.
No, I can't do that.
Hell no.
All right, so
I'm
we got
betting on
one here.
one gets a touchdown. That's what I'm betting on.
Book it down. Boyd or Higgins, it's 14 plus fantasy points. I like it. I'm ready for it. 14 plus fantasy points. And there's a lot at stake here, fellas. We're getting to the nitty-gritty of the fantasy football season, man. So we have rewards for our book it downs.
We got a tab on the spreadsheet. You got to add all those in there.
I'm adding them as we go. We're doing it.
Everybody can see it. All right. All right, so we got the Jaguars at the Vikings. We're going to skip this game because the Vikings suck. So let's move on to the Colts and Texans.
Sure do.
We're going to go throw this to Justin. our Vikings insider or just Vikings fan here. Justin, what's going on at this game this week?
I think it's a really cut and dry game, to be honest. Mild injuries, Conley might be sitting out. Irv Smith on the Vikings end is definitely out. But you start your studs in this game, and that's Robinson on the Jags and Thielen, Jefferson, Cook on the Vikings. The only questions I have, and I think it's a question every single week, it's what do you do with DJ Shark? Do you play him? Do you sit him? I don't know what to do with him because some weeks I feel great. I'm wrong. Some weeks I'm sitting him. It's a bad choice. What do you all do with Shark this week?
I look at it as if he's activated and healthy, I'm playing him in my flex. That's how I've treated
He's
him.
a wide receiver 3, which is a flex value play for me. Yeah, I wouldn't feel
unless it's a terrible matchup, but I don't know.
Favorable matchup for him. The Vikings are not good against the wide receivers.
So that's what I'm saying. If they're playing the Rams, then no way. But just depends on the matchup.
I'm looking at his depth, like his week to week, and he honestly seems predicated on targets. The 3 weeks he's done really good, or not 3, 2.5 weeks. He's got 9, 14, and 12. The rest have been 8 or under, and he just doesn't perform. It's an odd year for him. But any other starts that game?
Outside of the no-brainers, I don't think so. I mean, we know who we're starting as far as the big studs. So,
what about Cousins? You feel good playing Cousins this week?
Dude, I don't know how I missed it, but Cousins has been killing it these past 4 weeks. And I mean, most people have a decent quarterback already. And so if you're in a 2-quarterback league and you have Cousins, you're feeling great about it because he wasn't expected to be this great. And it's weird because the passing volume is still not that high, right, Justin?
No, we've been having to pass a lot. Yeah. Last 3 games, 45 against Carolina, 30 against Dallas, 36 against Chicago.
So, I mean, I think that
those are pass attempts, by the way. Those are pass attempts.
If I'm not mistaken, like last week, he didn't have a great game.
Who, Dalvin? He got banged up too. It's I mean, he had a 10-point game pretty much, which is you will take it, but it's not Dalvin's style game. But I'll tell you this: if you need to make the playoffs and you need a quarterback to play, this is the last week you can play Cousins because he's got a hard schedule, and this is one of the most favorable schedules. So if you need him, use him this week, and then I think you have to look away.
So I have Watson in a league that I'm likely going to make the playoffs, but I want to lock up one of those top seeds, and I consider playing Cousins or Tannehill over Watson. Mm-hmm. And as of right now, I'm just rolling with Watson because I'm like, if I bench him and he has a good game, I'm going to be pissed at myself. But I've considered pick up Cousins or Tannehill.
I would start
Tannehill.
I want to start Cousins, to be honest. Thielen's back, and I think the Browns are not great, but they're better than people give them credit for. So I'm going to say it's close, but I side Cousins, which is, if you know me, odd to say.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to the Colts at the Texans. So we have David Johnson potentially coming off the IR this week. The coach, Cornell, says he's looking good, and hopefully we'll see him Sunday. We've talked about Watson already several times throughout this show, and so we don't want to get too in-depth on it. But I still think, look, unless you can pick up one of these great waiver options this week, and honestly, if you don't need a win, if you already locked up the top seed or you already locked up a playoff spot and you're not fighting for seeding, don't drop an important player on your bench to pick up one of these backup quarterbacks. It's kind of irrelevant this week unless you're eyeing benching Watson in the playoffs. But I'm not too down on Watson. I've seen him overcome bad matchups before and get it done. I think people are undervaluing how much Brandon Cooks is going to benefit going forward. I honestly think he's going to be a top 12 wide receiver, no question, for the rest of the season. I mean, there's only 4 games left in the fantasy world, potentially. But I honestly think, just like people were overlooking, I know it was injury concerns for Will Fuller, but I still thought people were undervaluing how much Will Fuller was going to benefit from being the number 1 guy. I think Cooks is going to similarly benefit being the number one guy going forward. And as far as guys, and I think for sure Cooks is a no-brainer start for the rest of the season. Do you guys disagree with that?
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson, like you said, he's an amazing talent. You're starting him because you drafted him, but I mean, if you can find a better matchup, at least this week, maybe just this week, you should. But other than that, I think he's going to be throwing the ball, and Cooks is a beneficiary of that. He's the only beneficiary of that. So I like it.
I do think if David Johnson comes back and he's healthy, I mean, we'll see about Kiki QT. There's a possibility he's a target hog, but I think David Johnson can end up being like their second leading receiver going forward as well.
I don't think so. I'll say this: start Cousins or Tannehill over Watson because it's a favorable matchup. But Cooks definitely goes up in value, but I wonder what happens now that the cornerback one of each team is going to be sticking someone like him, because we know Fuller is a bigger receiver than Cooks, so we'll see how that affects him.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Luckily, I have no shares in either of them, but I like to keep track of what they do, and this week will tell me a lot. I'm favoring on the side of that coaching change, which turned their offense around, is going to continue to produce, but this is a big week to watch out for the playoffs.
Yeah.
And real quick, go ahead, Gabe.
No, it's a big test. Justin had all the points. They've played really well since the coaching change, but it's just such a huge question mark now with Will Fuller out. It's just another hurdle that he's going to have to overcome. And I think this week is definitely just like, hey, let me stand back and see what he can do, and hopefully it doesn't ruin your fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, and real quick, I'll just make a few comments here, and if you guys disagree with any of this, let me know. Michael Pittman Jr., love him as a flex consideration. Love him in dynasty leagues, but not that I have him in a dynasty league. I don't. But I am actually rolling with Jonathan Taylor this week. I have him where I need to win as well, and I'm not saying he's my number one running back, but I think he was on trajectory to finally take over, and he had to sit out due to the COVID-19. His girlfriend was positive. It was a close contact, but I know how many times have we discussed the Colts backfield, and we always get
every
it wrong.
Week.
This is my last. I said this before. I've already said I'm done with Jonathan Taylor. Now I'm back on it. Whatever. But also, a lot of people in the fantasy world are talking high about T.Y. Hilton after last week's touchdown and highest yardage of the season, and his history with Houston. Apparently, and I didn't know this off the top of my head, but he's gone off on Houston like every game in his whole entire career almost. You guys consider your flex? Honestly, I don't.
I'm not starting him at all.
Yeah, it might be a 1 week flare up. I'd have to see a little bit more of a trend before I consider starting him with confidence.
This is why we need a 12-man league where you can
You're gonna have to start
in your third flex spot.
Season, man.
I want to go on record. I wasn't on the show last podcast, so I got to give you my dark horse, and that is actually Pittman. I'm going Pittman as my dark horse this week.
Okay, I'll add him to the spreadsheet. Pittman. And are there any parameters on that?
I guess I take the standard going over expected average. I didn't really put a stat line on him. It's just a confidence.
Basically, I think the point is, Gabe and I kind of said you're basically taking the over or under on their projected Yahoo points in our leagues.
He's at 13.17, so yeah, definitely over on that.
Okay. So I'll say,
safe floor.
I'll say 14 points or over.
Sure, I agree on that. And then my dark horse, my fool's gold will come up later in the show.
All right, just don't forget because we got to add it on. I'm sure you're waiting for the game.
You guys are going to love it.
Yeah. Do you know our dark horses and fool's golds this week?
We can mention them as they come up.
Have they came up yet? No, they haven't. Okay,
no, they haven't.
Cool. I did mention my backup though. Awesome. Well, we're gonna skip this next game as well. The two worst franchises in the league, Raiders and Jets. Moving on. No, Raiders and Jets. Man, look, I've actually liked Derek Carr his whole career, even though I'm a Niners fan. I've been pro Derek Carr most of my life. or most of his career. And I started him last week in a league.
Good job, man. Really
Hey,
nice.
I started him too, Jacob.
To be fair, I had Lamar Jackson. He was out. I had to start somebody. It was the best matchup available on the waiver wire.
Exact same scenario.
I'll never forget this. But Gabe,
really
what are we
good.
looking at with this game? Break it down. Injuries, players to start.
I don't know if you guys looked at the show notes really quick, but I decided to go back, and I went back far enough.
Good input, Justin. I like those last notes at the end. Good input.
I went back far enough to know that I was going to keep crying if I continued to look any further. Dating back to 2015, after week 8 of the NFL season, the Raiders have played in 17 games on the East Coast. This is just dating back to 2015. That's including their 2016 season, by the way, when they went 12.
When did they draft Carr?
They, I think 2015, when they went 12-4 in 2016. They are 1-16 when they play on the road after week 8 against East Coast teams. And most notably, last year when they traveled to New York, to the New York Jets, when the Jets were putrid then as well, and they lost to the Jets in a matchup they were favored in. They lost to the Jets. Now, guys, the Raiders, they're my guys. I'm not going to come out here and say that the Raiders are going to lose to the Jets this weekend. I don't think that's true. But I'm saying all signs, as far as fantasy are concerned, you should tread with caution. A lot of people are going to say this is a bounce-back game for Derek Carr. I'm not too sure about that. A lot of people are saying, hey, you can start Devin Booker with confidence now, knowing that Josh Jacobs is out against that bottom 10 rush defense in the New York Jets. I'm not too confident about that either. You're never really starting a wide receiver from the Oakland Raiders, so that's that side of the ball. And then as far as the Jets are concerned, you're not starting their quarterback in Sam Darnold. You can probably not start Frank Gore either. It's just not really an appealing matchup. Perryman would probably be my biggest. Perryman and Crowder are probably the two guys that I'm most interested in, knowing that the Raiders are prone to being peppered underneath quite often, and Perryman with the long shot, deep ball as well. Those are the only two guys that I'm considering even playing this week, and I might even just pit them against each other because I have Crowder in one league and Perryman in another. And if I had them both in one league, just for the heck of it, who would you guys start, Perryman or Crowder this week?
I like Crowder with Darnold. It's just been great when they.
I would start Denzel Mims over both of them.
I agree. I don't agree, but I like that.
Mims, no.
I'm just going with the hot take.
It's not hot.
He's been really serviceable, but
he's been serviceable.
No, I go Crowder. Crowder's their best option there, fantasy-wise.
I can't believe I'm saying this as a non-Raider fan, two-way Raider fan, but I couldn't disagree with you more. And I'm gonna tell you why. It's not so much the Raiders as it is the Jets. They do not want to win. I called it 2 or 3 weeks ago when they played the Patriots, and they were beating that. They were whooping them. And then comes the third quarter, the fourth, they were running at 75. They threw that game. I'm 100% sure on that. They are not going to beat the Raiders.
The owners are in the coach's ear saying, lose this game. You better lose this game.
The Raiders are going to get their second East Coast win in the past 5 years this Sunday, okay?
Hey,
Trust me.
Look, I'm not disagreeing with you. I do think the Raiders will win. I'm just saying I think it's going to be an ugly game for fantasy.
Oh, no one said it has to be pretty, but the Raiders will win, and Waller will have a nice game, and I would feel confident starting Booker as well.
You know what's sad about this? The Raiders should blow them out.
Booker is a flex spot at the most.
Fire up Booker, I'm telling you guys.
I agree.
I'll book it down with Booker, boys. On my own. I can't do this to my boys, man. But you guys are making me. Let's see if Yahoo has updated the standings yet.
I think he's at 12.5 points.
It's okay, Gabe. I've been the most anti-Mostert guy, and I'm a Niners fan.
12.5 points. I say Booker under 15-plus fantasy points this week.
Oh, 15 is a high number. 15 is like
too high to
RB1 this year.
What? Fine. Booker under 13 points.
What is he projected for?
12.9.
Okay, let's go with the over under 13. I think that's fair. I'll take it.
Over.
I'll take it.
I will update your brain.
But
It's a
yeah,
lot of
but like
putting
I
down
said,
today.
because I think, look, the way Gruden likes to use running backs, I do think it's possible he gets over 15, but I don't feel that confident in it, to be honest.
Again, I'm banking he's going to get a touchdown, and against the Jets, I definitely would put that on him.
So real quick, let me ask you guys. So I'm in a league. I still have Derek Carr in my starting lineup in one of my leagues because look, this should be a good spot for him. It really should be. And it's safe to say if I lose this matchup, I don't make the playoffs. But here are my options on the waiver wire here: Cam Newton, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Mitchell Trubisky, Andy Dalton, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold.
Every
So-
time. I love it.
I stick with Carr, right?
I can't believe that's your option, but yeah, you stick with Carr. Is there like people hoarding 4 quarterbacks or something over there?
I don't know, man. It's a 10-team league. I guess so. I don't have time to look through all the teams, but
Yeah, no, you start
I'm
Carr.
riding
You
with
okay?
Carr. Gabe, if I lose because of Carr, it's your fault, man.
Hey, I told you probably don't start him.
You actually have been telling me not to start him even since the last podcast. You told me not to start him either.
Everyone's
I'm
saying
gonna do it.
this.
I'm gonna do it, man. We'll see what ends up happening. All right, Giants at Seahawks. Justin, break this game down for us real quick.
I think this is the easiest game to call of the week. You start the obvious, and real quick, Daniel Jones, I think, is limited, probably doubtful, but I don't care. It doesn't change anything on that side of the ball. Only player I want to start on the Giants is Gallman, that's for sure. On the other side, you start your big boys, Wilson, Metcalf, Lockett, and Carson. Nobody else. The only question I have is Shepard worth a flex play this week? Oh, I'm sorry. I also want to start Ingram. He's been suspiciously awfully good, if that makes sense. Like you watch him play, it's gross. He gives up nice tight end fantasy numbers. But the only question is Shepard. What do you do? Any worth starting, or you obviously have a better flex?
So clearly he didn't listen to the podcast last week. Yeah, Justin Shepard is my dark horse this week. You got the Seattle Seahawks, the number 1 team when it comes to passing yards through the air. Since coming back off of IR, Sterling Shepard has led the Giants in receptions and receiving yards. With that being said, even if Colt McCoy is in there, he's literally the epitome of a backup quarterback. That's been his whole career. And he doesn't really come in and slouch. And I don't think he's going to come in and slouch against Seattle. On that side of the ball, Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, I'm totally confident in playing either of those two guys this week. I'm starting Ingram with confidence. I'm starting Shepard with confidence. And I have Shepard just over 15-plus fantasy points. I have him for 5 receptions, 50 yards, and a touchdown.
And that's regardless of Daniel Jones playing.
Yep.
Yeah, see, the reason I like Shepard, but the only reason I question him is if Daniel Jones sits. So that's where I was coming from on that ask. But,
I would start him even if Colt McCoy. I mean, like I said, he's just the epitome of a backup quarterback. This has been a guy who's come in for people in Tennessee. He's come in for people in New York. He's come in for people in the other New York. Like he goes out and he doesn't give you great games, but he's not going to just totally pummel all of your fantasy relevant starters on the team. So
yeah, I like Shepard as a flex play. And the thing, we're never going to know anybody's full roster. We don't know what your other options are, but I do really like him as a flex play this week.
And should, baby.
Any worry that Carlos Hyde had much more work than Carson last week?
No, I think that was a get right game for Carson coming after missing so many games with that injury and then Hyde dealing with his own as well. I think they just kind of wanted to ease him back into it. I think this game, it becomes a little bit more even keel in that regard.
Yeah, and Gallman has been beasting, man. Gabe, he was available on the waiver wire in your league, man. I don't know how, but I picked him up. I didn't even have to pay a waiver priority for him. All right, Rams at the Cardinals. Look, the Rams defense has been playing really well this season, but it's been up and down. Like not their defense, but they beat the Bucs, right? And then they lose to the 49ers, but 49ers have great coaching, I will say. But look, Kyler Murray has had a shoulder problem the past couple of weeks. He has been upgraded to full as of Thursday. But man, what do you guys think? Hopkins has been not the wide receiver overall number 1, top 3 wide receiver this season. And it's been very disappointing, man. Like I've suffered because of it, because I would have, if Hopkins was performing consistently, normally how he does, it would be the difference for me of like 3 different matchups this season in one of my leagues. But no matter what, you're still starting Hopkins no matter what. I mean, you can't bench him.
Now that we had 2/3 of the season to watch, it's kind of obvious. Watson's a much better passer than Murray. Murray just dominates the ball a little bit more, and we saw such an amazing week 1 from Hopkins. I won't forget, because I think everyone wanted to see how that dynamic duo is going to work out. He had 16 targets, and it just hasn't reached that consistently. Like, you're not expecting 16, but you're not expecting 5. So I mean, he's no longer that beast of a wide receiver in fantasy perspective because he's running with Murray, but you can't bench him. You have to start him and just temper your expectations moving forward.
Of course. So I think, look, Kupp has always, or for the most part, he hasn't had good games against the Niners. He had 2 bad games he had a bad game earlier this year against the Niners, and he had a bad game last week. I still think Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods are solid wide receiver 2s. Obviously, you're starting Kyler Murray. I believe he's still the number 1 quarterback on the season. Kenyon Drake, to me, I think he's a start, but I think it's more of a flex than an RB2, to be honest. Jared Goff, I'll stay away from him. I would also stay away from the Rams running backs. Chase Edmonds, now I used to say, hey, you can consider Edmonds as a flex as well. They've kind of handed it over to Drake for the most part. So do you guys have any other thoughts on those things?
You're starting Kyler Murray. He's been a top 3 option all season long. This week, though, especially after being handled by the New England Patriots, you would like to think it's a rebound game for him. He's facing an equally difficult matchup in
Jalen Ramsey
and the top-rated Los Angeles Rams defense. So I think he's still a top 10 option for sure, definitely. But I mean, would you guys rather start someone like? This is a situation we're facing in the first round fantasy podcasters league. Are you going to start someone like Aaron Rodgers, or are you going to start someone like Kyler Murray in his matchup? Because I have Aaron Rodgers in as of right now.
Oh, that's
man,
a good one.
What a good draft by us, man. Yeah. I mean, we had injuries tear us apart, but
we'll let you know how it goes. But I have Aaron Jones in right now.
That's a tough decision, to be honest.
You know, I would never bench Murray, even though that's close. Philly's defense is nice, but I can never bring myself to bench Murray no matter what, because if he pops for 40 like he does sometimes, I couldn't sleep at night knowing that I benched him. I can't do that.
That's fair, but you likely don't have someone like Aaron Rodgers on your bench. I don't know. I think it's a get right game for Murray. He should, but it's just such a tough defense, and I'm playing the matchup here.
Rams are flip floppy. I hope they flop this week.
They most definitely are. I mean, hey, I'm starting Kyler Murray in pick 6, so that should bode confidence for people who do want to start him. I think you should start him with confidence week in and week out. I'm just saying, I'm looking at the matchup this week, and in a certain league, I have Aaron Rodgers, so I'm going to start Aaron Rodgers over Kyler Murray this week. That's the way.
Do you guys think Christian Kirk is on the radar this week? Do you think he's going to get more targets with Ramsey on Hopkins?
I don't think that offense works like that, to be honest. I don't think they want to feed anybody besides Hopkins. He just will pass to the open man. As you see, like Dan Arnold, he even gets in the red zone work too. I wouldn't aim Christian Kirk. He's like almost been the definition of boomer bust this year. I stay away.
Interesting.
Now, I want to bring up one major point though. I can't believe I'm saying it, but Drake needs to be considered a RB2 from now on. And I'm telling you why. That 1 week he's been a dumpster fire the whole year. Then they hit the goal line and force feed this man a touchdown and get so happy because of it. I'm not gonna lie, last week he got 2 touchdowns. I think they both came off the goal line work. He's getting those opportunities, and in the awful running back situation we have, again, 20 carries a game is going to do me an RB2 service. You know what I mean? I feel good about him. I didn't know I was going to say that.
I just can't trust him after, in a draft. I left a draft this year with Henry, Aaron Jones, and Drake. And I was like, oh my goodness, these 3 running backs are going to carry me like all year. And Drake, I just can't trust him. And
I understand that.
Jones has kind of fallen off a little bit too, but I still think he's a great play for the rest of the season. All right, let's rapid fire through these. Unless you have a great point, let's just have the person assigned to him comment on these. Gabe, Patriots at Chargers. Update us on any injuries and who you're starting or sitting.
It's pretty cut. Well, it's not cut and dry. So I'm sorry, Jacob. We're not going to be able to fly through this one because I have a hot take. I have my fool's gold player in this matchup, and that is Justin Herbert. Again, don't turn off our podcast just because I said that. Justin Herbert is a great rookie quarterback. He will have a good fantasy game. But if you look at his fantasy performances throughout the season, I can almost guarantee you he's not going to get the 25 plus he's been getting you on the regular. All right. He'll probably be under 20 fantasy points this week. The New England Patriots, man, they're just a great defense. I admire good defenses. And we talked about it. We touched a little bit on it last week where it wasn't up until 2 weeks ago did this defense encounter star quality quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson. Both of them had fantasy relevance. However, second-year sophomore Kyler Murray comes in, and they game plan for him, and he was shut down. I think they're going to throw things at the rookie that he hasn't seen before. I would honestly say I'm probably starting someone like Aaron Rodgers over Justin Herbert this week as well. All good things must come to an end. He's a rookie. He's had a Cinderella season so far, and he's going to be great throughout his fantasy career. He's getting under 20 fantasy points this week against that New England defense. As far as everyone else is concerned, Jacoby Myers, take a flyer on him. Bird, if you're like in a 20-team league, Harris, White, 2 touchdowns last week. That was cool to see. So that even complicates things a little bit more, especially because they were rushing touchdowns. So interesting things there. I might shy away from them if you have better matchups on the other side of the ball. Keenan Allen, I'd love to see it, but I think him, Hunter Henry, they can sustain some relevance, but I think you have to temper your expectations for all Chargers offensive weapons, except Austin Eckler. I think he's going to be foolproof, game-proof. He'll probably be the
Belichick does shut down young quarterbacks, man. I mean, I don't know if the shoulder had to do with it, but they did temper Murray as well this past week. And if you look at his track record for sophomore and rookie quarterbacks, he just figures them out and shuts them down.
I have to say I'm really shocked because my fool's gold was also Justin Herbert. This was not correlated.
Wow. So I didn't know if Justin was smirking because he completely disagrees with Gabe.
That's what I was thinking too.
I couldn't believe you said that. But yeah, he's my fool's gold as well for almost identical reasons in which you stated.
Interesting. That's interesting because I bet you a lot of people need him to win this week to get into the playoffs. So
usually we don't allow dual fool's golds, but I think this was so coincidental that we have to accept it, huh?
That's fair.
Yeah, it works. It works. That's totally fine. All right, Eagles at Packers, Justin.
Easy. Ertz might be back, but that doesn't change anything for me. Drop him as a landmine for someone else to hope he gets a good game. But I'm starting Goddard. He's proven it. That's about. I'll start Sanders as well. But Rodgers is playing. Jones is playing. Adams is playing. The only questions I have is the Rager, the Fulgrams. I think you just have to pivot because the team is just awful. Like, I can't trust Wentz at all. Tonyan, I wouldn't mind starting, but I think there are better options as well.
Should I drop Zach Ertz in a dynasty league?
Oh yeah, I dropped him too. I was hoping someone picks him up.
In a dynasty league, he's getting up there in age.
Well, he might be with a new quarterback next season, though. So maybe I'll hold on to him and see where he lands.
Maybe. I can only see it working out if he gets paired up with a good quarterback that utilizes it. But if you have a deep roster and no one else is worth it, keep him for a dynasty.
Yeah, I'll probably keep him. If you think about it, though, it's not that Zach Ertz isn't talented. That Eagles team, that offense is just totally screwed up. It's not that he's not talented, to be honest. He was the only option when he was healthy.
If I can find the post again, I'll show you on the forums. These people get deep, and they actually showed how much he's regressed. And they call it yards of separation, and he's just not getting any on the routes. That's where he's lacking big time. Not to say Wentz is giving him nice dimes, but between Wentz being awful and him not getting separation, it's hindered him.
That's the kind of info we need, Justin. Keep coming with that, man.
Let's go.
All right. So Broncos at Chiefs. So interestingly enough, this is where my fool's gold comes up, and my fool's gold is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm done with him being a set it and forget it. I've treated him like a set it and forget it all season long. He's no longer that. He is arguably the biggest disappointment in fantasy because, I mean, other than maybe Lamar Jackson, but even Lamar Jackson is like, he's just not getting you 40. He's getting you maybe 20 a game, but not 40 anymore. Mm-hmm. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire, everybody was hyping him up a first-round pick. I fell for it, drafted him in one of my leagues. I'm done. Look, I told Gabe, I'm still going to start him in the league that I have him in.
But he's missed the last 2 practices, Jacob. Be careful.
And on top of that, I do know that he has missed practices with an illness, but we've seen these non-COVID illnesses pop up and then players play. But I'm just saying, even if they activate him, I don't feel great about it. But I still, it's whatever. I have to throw him into my flex because he plays for the Chiefs. I'm not starting any Broncos anymore. I mean, even with other than maybe Noah Fant, because you just don't have another tight end. But as long as one of the quarterbacks are back, the real quarterbacks are back, I'll start Noah Fant. But other than that, I'm staying away from all Broncos. I love Jerry Jeudy, but I'm done with that team for now.
I would start Schultz, Graham, Hurst, all over Noah Fant. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely – that's fair. I mean, with tight end, it gets tricky there. But also, I mean, you're starting your main Chiefs obviously, and you're starting the Chiefs defense. If they're available, go pick them up. All right, let's move on to the Monday night games. We have 2 Monday night games, one at 2 p.m., one at the normal 5 o'clock range. So, Gabe, what's going on at this Washington and Steelers game?
Man, it's going to be a good one. That's for sure. I mean, the Steelers have had very interesting matchups throughout the season, given that I don't think they've really been tested on their 11-0 season so far. I think Tennessee was a good test, and they passed that, so congrats to them. But, I mean, Washington is a team that doesn't look good on paper, and their record doesn't show how good they've been. But this team is in playoff contentions, and they have no reason to tank. I do think the Steelers come out on top, but as far as running backs are concerned, I'm probably not starting Snell. I'm starting my usual wide receivers, even though Washington has one of the top passing defenses in the league. That's Juju. I feel actually more confident starting Juju this week than I do someone like Deontay Johnson. Claypool, I would start him. Pretty much pick your poison with the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers. On the other side of the ball, keep an eye out for Terry McLaurin. He's been popped up on the injury report the last couple of days. He should play just fine. Same thing with Antonio Gibson. I mean, you're looking at just negative matchups when you're looking at in terms of fantasy players and relevance to this game. Both defenses are really good. I expect this to be a really grinded out game. And even though Steelers have a top rushing attack defense, I think Gibson is still going to get the workload and the passing down work. And I think you start him too. Are we dropping McKissick? I don't know. This is Justin's favorite guy.
I wanted to get a yes or no answer from you guys. Are you done with McKissick?
I've never had him, so I'm okay with not having him.
Absolutely no. Do not drop him.
You're right. He is Justin's favorite guy.
Yeah, no, it has. Oh, listen. I love the player and the fantasy value. I got an insider with the Redskins, okay, and the information that I have gathered
is this.
I don't want to take too much time, but this is information you have to know. I'm gonna go back 4 weeks. They play the Giants. They're losing that game. He gets 17.2 PPR. He plays Detroit. They lost. He got 17.9. They play Cincinnati. They whooped them 9.9. They beat Dallas, whooped Dallas 4.7. Do you think they're beating the Steelers? Do you think they're beating the Niners, the Seahawks? No. They use McKissick when they're down. If they win, they don't need him because they're winning. They're not playing that catch-up backfield passing work. So he's literally matchup based. If you think they're losing, play him. I'm starting him if I need to this week. No problem. Thank you for hearing that out.
Oh,
I'm cutting that down.
Let's book it down.
Oh, what kind of book it down do you want to do?
Anything to say McKissick is not starting this week.
Okay, he's averaged 9.7 this week. I'd go above 10 if that's fair for you.
You're so confident, go plus 12.
Oh my God, plus 12 against the Steelers, deal.
I'm taking the under. I'm taking the under.
That's
Go-
okay. Good.
Go write it down, Gabe. I'm taking the
Listen,
under. All right.
the defense of the Steelers is really nice, but their offense is awesome. They're gonna light them up. I don't care if Washington's defense is decent. They're a good run defense, not a pass defense.
We got enough book it downs this week to make up for the last 4
It's
weeks.
like the most we've done in one episode. All right, we got the Bills at the 49ers. This is bound to be a good game with the 49ers bouncing back and beating the Rams. We have Deebo Samuel back in the lineup. I think he is definitely a for sure flex play, I would say. I'm not – a lot of people are saying, oh, fire him up as a wide receiver too. I love his performance. He's a great player, but I think he's just a solid flex play. Brandon Ayuk is activated off the COVID-19 list. I would wait on starting Brandon Ayuk till you see how the game is played with Nick Mullins and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk all in the lineup together. If Deebo was out, I would say start Ayuk, but not really with Deebo in the lineup. The running back situation gets more convoluted. Tevin Coleman avoids the injury report, might play, but I still think Raheem Mostert is your guy there. As long as he's healthy, you're starting him. You're starting your main studs on the Bill side. Allen, you're starting Diggs. Avoid the running backs always, and unless one of them goes down in Buffalo. But the question is, Justin, I'd put Beasley on the questionable side. Do you think he should be on the for sure start side?
No, not at all. He's a matchup guy as well. I know they lost John Brown, but he plays slot. It doesn't really affect that. He only did well last week because he threw a touchdown. You don't bank on that in a bad matchup.
Yeah, and what about Gabriel Davis? Do you guys think he's a guy people could throw on their bench, or it's just too late? You can't rely on him this time of year.
It's too late in the season. I wouldn't have any interest in him. But in a dynasty, he's a great pickup, great stash. Wait and see.
Oh, I just added him to my dynasty roster. Thank you, Gabe. All right, let's wrap it up with the Cowboys and Ravens. And before you get started, Justin, I will say J.K. Dobbins is my dark horse of the week. I said if he gets activated off the COVID-19 list, which he has, fire him up. He's going to light it up. I am depending on him to make the playoffs in our most important league, Beer Drinkers Unite. I'm starting him in my flex this week, putting my money where my mouth is. I'm all in on J.K. Dobbins.
Also, just to update, as little as 30 minutes ago, they said that they expect to activate Lamar Jackson off the COVID-19 list, which means he should be able to play in this game.
Yes.
Next point. With that said, Jackson, if he's in, you start.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's about it, unless you Jacob wanting to start Dobbins.
We're playing the Cowboys.
I know. I don't like that shaky backfield, but Dobbins is the one to play if you're going to play. On the other side, it pains me to say that Zeke might have to be a sit this week. But again, if you do it and he does anything decent, you're going to feel sick about it. I'd still start him. Cooper, you start. With Dalton back, I like CeeDee Lamb again as a flex play, but you may have pivoted away from him and you have a better option. But I wouldn't feel bad if I had to play him. Tony Pollard, I'm not going to touch. As Gabe said, Schultz is an undercover nice tight end still with Dalton back. Hollywood, just like Hilton, one game doesn't do anything for me. So that's that game for me.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. You have any opposing thoughts, Gabe?
No, I'm good. It's so far out.
Yeah, Mark Andrews is also, I think he can't come back yet because he was added to the COVID-19 list so late. But yeah, I'm hoping Lamar Jackson plays because that'll actually change maybe my Dobbins take. But I've always went at it as Jackson playing, and he's eligible to be activated on Sunday, and they play Tuesday. So we'll see. We got Tuesday Night Football again this week, guys.
Nice.
That could be fun. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the First Round Fantasy Podcast. That is our game previews for Week 13. Thank you all for listening. Good luck on your fantasy playoff, getting into the playoff matchups if this is your time. I know I'm in a couple of those spots, and I'm just going to have to turn my phone and my TV off and go to sleep and then wake up Tuesday night and see what happens. So thank you, Justin. Thank you, Gabe.
Yeah.
Marley, see you guys next time.
Later.